white trash, the untold 400 history of class in America, because there ain't nothing classy about the United States. Okay.
Exactly.
But when in 1988 was what you were looking for out of the Declaration, Rhonda, the 100th Congress acknowledged that the Iroquois Confederacy was the complete foundation, and there was 6 nations in the northern corridor that's between the Ohio Valley, and I think I shared this with you a couple of weeks ago, but whatnot. But there's a series on Washington if you haven't seen it. It's a 3-part series on Washington. You know, his ineptitude and incompetence caused what we were taught in high school as the French and Indian War. Did you know that? He was a young officer in his 20s. He was sent on what was supposed to be a diplomatic thing to interact with the French, who were in competing positions there in what we call the Ohio Valley today. His ineptitude caused this magnitude of bloodshed and warfare. But what happens for him in his personal situation? The same thing that happens for Donald Trump. They fail upward. How is that? How is that? In his story, his complete being was to be in the military of the king, to be a British subject. He spent his entire being trying to pursue the military status, which that means what? He was a British loyalist, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
Then when they rejected him time after time, he then organized the militia in Virginia. A similar effort, I think, was still considered Ohio Valley because Pennsylvania and Ohio didn't exist separately yet. You know, Pennsylvania was still one of the original colonies. But when he went and invested his time, how did these 13 ragtag militias defeat the most powerful naval and military empire at that moment in time on the planet? Please explain that to me, because I'm confused. You know, how did they accomplish that? When you just shared in what you were just talking about, the British, dark-skinned individual, British, I think, had created the colonial forces, right, to recapture the white vagabond slave properties.
Right.
You know what the reason for the Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key? They were referred to as the African Marines, were they not, Sean? And that's that unknown third stanza that a lot of people didn't pay attention to when Kaepernick was doing his knee, Rhonda. That when you go and look it up, and you can look it up because it's, you know, because of all the controversy that surrounded him. In that third stanza, he talked vociferously about his hatred for the African Moors. Right? Right, Sean? Moors, Marines. And when you're talking about the Marines, what's the song? From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. Who is that? Who is that?
Libya?
Isn't that the Moors, Sean?
Yes, it is.
So when we keep...
They talk about the treaties, the Treaty of Tripoli.
You talking about the peace and friendship and all that good shit and whatnot? Okay. All right. So now, when we out of ignorance, we talked about before, when I talked about the 1619 versus the 1620 false narratives, you know, 1690 is the slave narrative attached to the Negro. 1620 is the false white man, WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant, the Puritan, the Pilgrim, the Quakers, religious freedom narrative. Neither of those groups of people can we truly measurably draw a line of connecting this current population. That's the reason that Henry Louis Skip Gates Jr. has so vocally been recruited by the Mormon Church of Latter-day Saints. To desperately, falsely recruit our ignorant people into validating a mythology of displacing oneself out of Africa. So did you notice the last so-called reference, and this was one of Dane's latest videos as well, but I also saw it in they have this thing called Uncovering America at PBS, because, you know, they trot him out on a regular basis to get coinage out of our pocket, saying that we're going to support the Africans, you know, many rivers to cross and still our rise from MLK to today. Okay, whatever. But the number was supposedly 12.5 million, right? And over 100 million Africans were killed for that bare 10% to survive the Middle Passage and all these amazing, fantastic shit that we were taught about how we've come from ancient Kemet and Songhai and Mali and Ghana and down south and from the Zulu nation. Okay, all right. So now the number then reduced to between 300,000 to 500,000, right? The last reported number, do you know what it is now? That's being stated out of the mouth of Henry Louis Skip Yates. You know what the last number is being stated now? From slavevoyages.org with his great white assistants in the background behind him. 92,000. Now, again, I'm
wait a minute.
You know when it was 500,000?
Wait a minute, brother. I want to make sure, because I don't like to lie on somebody because I didn't hear the motherfucking shit properly. You said 92,000. That's the latest number. So it went from millions to now it's 92,000.
No, but I'm still trying to say, now, is that 92,000 total or just to mainland? Because 85% of the original number, 12.5 million, wound up in Brazil alone. Right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, right? Is that what the mythology we're told? Of those who survived the transportation of the Middle Passage, 85% made it to Brazil alone. Only 15% made it to what we call the Caribbean and the mainland of Turtle Island. But now the number is 90. And just let me just give them that for the sake of argument, okay? That 92,000 from the 300,000 to 500,000 we were originally told made it to North America. Okay, so that's less than a third of what the number we were told. Again, please explain to me how the fuck you get from 92,000 to 40 to 50 million. Rabbits, I'm sure, will be very jealous of that bucket. Okay?
Child, yeah.
So we're to convince, the reason I'm pointing this out for an example, Rhonda, is how many of us could draw ourselves to that 92,000 as compared to white people running around here claiming they're blue bloods and can trace themselves to the motherfucking Mayflower. How many of them claim to be a descendant of George Washington, Sean? How many of these white people just running around here?
Tell it.
Okay?
Tell it, brother.
So
Who was melanated? Keep going.
I'm just asking. I mean, I'm confused. I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to do simple arithmetic, not race, not emotion. I'm just trying to do simple math. Now, you same brilliant motherfucker is going to tell me one drop of nigger blood makes you not an American Negro, an African Negro. Okay? So who's the white motherfucker now? A lot of what we say we know by simple social construct, because that's all race is, social construct, is nonsense.
That's exactly what it is.
It's obvious. Okay? It's obvious. But for the sake of legitimacy, because we have a legal claim here pending that's holding over their heads whether they know it or not. It's like, you ever heard of the mythology of the sword of Damocles? You ever heard of that? That's from that Moorish, that Muslim wisdom, right, John? The sword of Damocles comes from somewhere over there between Persia and the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
Okay? The sword of Damocles is hanging over these white motherfucking collective necks since they got a knee on ours. All right? Their problem is not mine. I'm going to say this one more time because I am sick and tired of we're all in this together. What? Excuse me? Who the fuck is we? And could you please explain to me what it is that we're in? Because we're all in this together. Okay? So when we lay the smackers down, like you say, lay the smack down, and whether or not one claims African genetic history, within this organic constitution and the 13th Amendment that was the last verified before the corporate criminal enterprise of 1871, the 15th Amendment was passed in 1870. So that means no amendment since the 15th Amendment is legitimately attached to the original document. You feel what I'm saying? In the original document, the only reference to Africans is in the 13th Amendment. And in the 12th section of that 13th ratified amendment, because there are 20 sections to it in the congressional record, it said descendants of Africans shall never be citizens. Can that be more clear? Can there be a more clear declaration than that? So, who are we talking about? Who is the 14th Amendment referring to when it says all whole persons must be considered? And I will repeat this in final comment, because I will try to do this every time I talk to you, is who the fuck are Indians not taxed?
Tell it, brother.
That to me is two entirely different things. Indians and Africans are two entirely different things, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And nowhere in the organic constitution, not the word European, not African, neither white, nor black.
Nope.
The only population identified is Indian. Who the fuck is that? Not Native American, not Pocahontas, not European American. Indians, not taxed. And when we finally take our head out of our collective asses and are adjudicating the crimes of the millennia, this is more than 100, this is more than 1,000 years building up. The date of the fraud of a crime that has no jurisdiction and no time limitation is the moment of realizing you've been defrauded. Are you feeling me? And you know when the moment of the crime reverts to, and that moment of reality of you've been defrauded? From the first incident. From the first incident. This ain't going nowhere. It ain't motherfucking reparations, because you can't repair this shit.
Right.
It ain't adjudication, because you have no jurisdiction.
That's right.
It's barely restitution, because I'm getting my shit back. Right. And it ain't but one way it's going to be addressed, because you criminal motherfuckers said the way you did, the way you took, is the way you go. You like to say this, Rhonda. I took and took. I took and told. Okay?
Yep.
They told and took.
Yes,
okay? So it sounds to me, in their same Bible, in their scripture, is what? An eye for an eye? A tooth for a tooth? A burning for a burning? But whose God is that, Rhonda? And I believe Thomas Jefferson said very clearly that he what? What did he say, Sandra? He weeps for the day of American reckoning. So when you hear these wild, crazy, young white people, Antifa, or wherever the fuck, they got a new one out of Portland now, calling it the Youth Liberation Front and shit, while these motherfuckers talking about a racial reckoning, what the fuck do you think they're talking about? Because we're all in this together. And I yield.